I've never seen more deposit bonuses across all the DFS sites than I have this Christmas.
Oh, yeah? I mean, I know there's a ton going on. Just today's FanDuel tournament with all the that's a home run.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. I'm assuming that one filled around midnight would be my guess.
If not before, yeah. But yeah, like I said, they dropped that second one there. The second one is basically their standard tournament. Like that's what they would have run on a normal day, I think, for actually a couple of.
All right, Stokastic, here we go. It's your old pal EMac. Doing a little Santa Claus action here as I get ready with T. McBee as we break down the NFL deeper dive. Terry, it's been a couple months since we've done an official NFL show. We've done a few things here and there, but it feels good to kick the tires once again here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be fun to dive into an NFL slate. I think this is my first actual slate NFL show. We did a few of the showdown shows early in the year, but I think this is my first actual, couple games of a slate NFL show. So it'll be fun to tear through this 3-gamer. It's an interesting one. Christmas Day, usually NBA Day in my head. We were talking about that behind the scenes a little bit just before the show, and I'm working on my NBA lineups here. I'm actually got everything in. I'm actually just trying to close the NBA model, and my computer is not letting me. So hopefully that's not a sign that I did something wrong in there and I screwed up all these NBA lineups, and it's saying like, hey man, wait, you got to fix this. But
all right. So for anybody wondering, we did do the NBA show already. You can look at that. It's currently up on the Stokastic YouTube stream. It's its own show, so you guys can check that out there. We also have, of course, all of our content available for the NBA. I'm going to drop the link into chat here. I've written a primer on all 5 matchups, highlighting the key things to look out for. Of course, this is the most exciting, and we'll get to NFL. Don't worry. We got 2 hours before NFL lock. But just for those of you doing double duty, this is our most exciting NBA day of the year. It's a 14-hour span between locks or some, and not quite that. It's more like 10, but an ungodly amount of time. So late swap is going to be key. We know a lot of people are falling asleep at the switch, both from overeating, from having a little too much fun, and then of course because it's family day today. So this is your best late swap day ever, but check that out. We got you covered for all of that. We're going to be talking NFL. It's rare that the NFL and the NBA cross paths on Christmas because, of course, there's only 1 or 2 days of the week. We can have a weekend double duty slate here, and NFL knew what's up. They gifted the association Sunday. They moved everything off of Sunday to almost everything to Saturday. Then they're doing 3 games today, and they've got a game tomorrow. So we still have 4 games left on the NFL slate. It's a very interesting one today. This game is also spread out. Not quite the weather issues that we had yesterday, or at least the cold. So that is helping out with some of the totals. Some of the totals, these teams are beyond. They're lost causes at this point, and nothing short of saying 11 on offense, 7 on defense could help these totals. But we'll work through all of that. Did you have any high-end observations here, Terry? We do have a couple teams that have playoff implications. I guess that's probably the first place to kind of start. Then we'll go game by game here. But the key things to remember are Green Bay can make the playoffs with a little bit of help, but they need to win out.
Yep.
Miami is trying to secure their postseason ticket, but they essentially control their own destiny. The Broncos are trying to win, so the pick they gifted Seattle is worse, or something like that. The Rams just enjoy that Super Bowl. Flags fly forever. Tampa Bay, or is it Tampa Bay? They are in the driver's seat right now, potentially at coming into the playoffs with the losing record while still winning the NFC South. But that's a bit of a disaster. And then Cardinals, My condolences, Cardinal fans, but yeah, long season there. So we do have some things to play for here, and of course, we're playing for pride. A lot of people watching, so
Yeah.
this no issues with that. But let's take her back to the top here, Terry. You got Green Bay going into Miami, taking on the Dolphins. Green Bay has the 32nd rushing DVOA. Dolphins would rather pass, but they also run a boatload. I believe the actual term is metric crap ton of play action. And they'll be going against their Kyle Shanahan loosely based rushing attack. He's got a couple from the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree or the Mike Shanahan coaching tree on this. So the zone blocking is going to be in play. That's something Green Bay struggles with. Miami should have Raheem Mostert and now Jeff Wilson healthy. So they're not going to have to beat the hell out of one of them. They can do this to set up the play action. What are we talking? Two-time defending NFL MVP. I almost said Brett Favre. Aaron Rodgers playing out the string.
Back.
Game manager of game. Tell me he doesn't feel like Favre at this point. I'm Keith Hernandez phase of things. Shout out to anybody who remembers Seinfeld. But Terry, take us through this game. Focus on Aaron Rodgers here to start us off.
All right. Yeah. So, I mean, if we're looking at the boom bust tool, and I'm kind of focusing on the DK tool today because they've got the big Millie Maker tournament up, but we'll talk about both. Just pulling that up here and sorting by our optimal lineup rate, we can see already that he's not the most optimal option from either of these teams. We're actually getting Tua about double the optimal rate at 31.3% versus Aaron Rodgers, who's just 16.1% optimal. He's negatively leveraged because he's going to be about 20% owned. So I do think, there's obviously a justification for him at that price and just his ability. He's got a couple dynamic young receivers that he's throwing to now, and that's kind of opened up their offense a little bit. So I do think there's obviously an argument to be made. He's one of several capable quarterbacks on the board here, and we've certainly got a few clunkers to deal with. So I definitely think he's in the mix, but at negative leverage and not quite as optimal as his opponent here, I think I'm probably a little bit more interested in Tua on the other side of this one. He's picking up a little bit more ownership around the ownership's right around his optimal rate. So he's slightly less negatively leveraged, but it's just a bigger number. So I'm kind of interested in Tua, even though he's a little bit more expensive. But I think at that discount price, you are getting a nice little buy there on Aaron Rodgers. That's showing through not that much in our boom score probability, 2.5% versus most of the skill players from Miami plus Tua all in the Tyreek Hill 17%, and then those other guys are around 5-6%. So Tyreek is the big boom score guy from this game on DK, despite the $9,000 salary. But I do think Rodgers plays certainly fairly well in this spot. It's a game that's getting a little bit of narrative around. It's like a 50-degree day in Miami, so cold for Miami, warm for Green Bay kind of a situation. So there's a little bit of that nonsense narrative going around out there. That's not something I would ever think about adjusting for, but maybe it shaves a little bit of expectation off the Miami offense, gives a little bit to Green Bay, but not something we can quantify.
Yeah, 50 degrees while
it's a nice, average outdoor.
It's still almost neutral. And as we saw so many receivers and linemen playing playing in short sleeves because they're more worried about ball control and stuff. And that was in like literally sub-freezing temperatures with the literal sub-zero wind chill factor. I don't think this is. And we saw,
despite the totals, like DFS wise and fantasy scoring wise, we saw a lot of games where there was still scoring. It just, it came in weird ways in a couple spots. Like Carolina opened up like 160 yards on the ground to start the game yesterday, or against Carolina. Or no, it was Carolina, excuse me, going against the Lions. They were just gashing the Lions play after play on the ground. The Bengals took it the other direction. They threw, I think Burrow completed like 27 passes in the first half or something like that yesterday and was just picking them apart. So there are still angles into this. We can't, just look at this and say, weather, cold, et cetera. It takes everything off the board. It just, may change how certain teams approach these games. But like you said at the top, not as big a factor today.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, it's Christmas. 'Tis the time of giving. So I'm going to give you guys a couple different ways you can get in on the Stokastic premium content here. Well, for starters, give a little something here. Give us a like, give us a subscribe on the YouTube channel as we crest towards 85,000 users here. But if you guys want to get a shout out there on the old Stokastic Hall of Fame, all you got to go to stokastic.com/avatar, download Stokastic Avatar, upload that onto your DFS side of choice. And when you place top 3 in any contest, that's first, second, or third with a contest consisting of over 5,000 entries, we're going to get you 30 free days of Stokastic premium content. Now you got to finish first, second, or third. None of this tie stuff. So showdown, when you tie with the 1,800 of your favorite friends, that's not finishing first, second, or third. If you three-way tie for first and you're one of them, there you go. Bingo. That works. But you got to finish in the top three after the tiebreakers. But you can tweet your wins to Stokastic Hall of Fame. Heck, you don't even have to win top three. We love to celebrate any victories here. So tweet at Stokastic HOF. All the details are there, but you'll get some shout outs here. We celebrate all wins, big or small.
Even those ties, I mean, those showdown ties, like they might not count to get you the free month because, hey, we can't be giving 1,800 people a free month just because they all tied.
But you may be a Millie Maker winner.
There you go. Exactly.
Millie Maker winner.
I've won several Millie Makers this year. a couple hundred to a couple thousand of my friends. The first one was nice. It was me and 5 other people, but that was in the old showdowns there. But yeah, those ties, they can build out your bankroll. They're nice little payouts, despite chopping it 150 ways or something.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you want to get shouted out, send them in.
And then, of course, we've got the risk-free bet over there at BetMGM. We'll talk about that in a little more detail between our next game, but just know you get a risk-free bet up to $1,000. But most importantly, when you make a deposit through the link below us here, got to be through the link below us here, and you got to be logged into your Stokastic account as you go into that. And you don't have to have an active Stokastic membership. You just have to have a Stokastic account or subscription. I mean, go through that link that tags it with coming from us. And as soon as you make a $10 wager and it settles, a little pop-up screen is going to appear on your BetMGM account, and it's going to give you a promo code that is good for 2 free months of Stokastic. You don't follow the steps and come in through the link and do everything that's describing on that landing page. It's not going to work. You're not going to get it. We're not going to retroactively give it to you because BetMGM isn't doing anything to us. It's quid pro quo, baby. Quid pro quo.
It's quid pro quo. Nice.
Yes. All righty.
Oh boy, that's a lot of Timmy Hardaway.
This is
over 2 tournaments. All right, that's a little bit better.
Okay,
I just remembered I had to divide these by 2.
Yeah, there you go. You go. That's because Terry's mentioning a little NBA that, of course, locks in 45 minutes. We have the standard.
Yeah, I'm just making sure I didn't have any guys who were already listed as out in this mess of lineups that I just threw in. We're good.
We've got that active 1 o'clock lock for us, 45 minutes until NBA locks. Is that only for new users? Chuck Oldham says the BetMGM. Yes, you have to be a new user to BetMGM. That is the 99% of any of our promo fee codes and any of these first deposit bonuses and all that. You have to be a new user. So anytime, that's actually a good segue. Anytime, and producer Mike, if you want to do a screen share of Stokastic, I'll walk you through what I want to see here. But anytime you go sign up to a new account and you're not going through one of our links, you're crazy. So if you go to the Stokastic homepage, in the upper left of the menu bar, there's a little drop down that says deals. If you hover over that, it will show you all the different deals on the sports books, the fantasy sites, our promos, and then any cool specials that are coming up. Why do these all say Ohio there at the bottom 3? Guess what? Sports wagering is going to be legal January 1st in Ohio. So for those of you out there in the state that's round in on both ends and high in the middle, as they like to say, it's a corny joke, but that's their biggest agricultural product. So see, I'm tying this all in here.
Well done.
Go through those, get the good stuff, right? You guys want to hit me up on Twitter, slide into the DMs. I've been giving out a lot of these advice and stuff in our Stokastic Premium DFS 101 chat. I'm going to show you how to cut some corners.
Yeah, you're great at those.
And take advantage of what's available throughout the industry. So I'm doing I did the risk-free bet. Guess what? I lost. I'll tell you what I had to do to start making my money back. But I do all of these anytime I can get a chance to do this. So this, for me, it's the game within the game. You guys all laugh at me. Oh, you never play blah, blah, blah. You don't do this. You don't do that. I make a shit ton of money doing this, at least comparable to what I play. Are you sitting there thinking
that all this love that pours out for you every single day in the chat, everybody's just home laughing at you behind your back? Is that what you really think? Is that
a couple people are? But you know what? Look at this ridiculous mug with the hat and the sweater. I'd be laughing at this guy.
This is why the people love you. This is why we all love you, EMac. Come on. This is why you are everybody's old pal, EMac. And happy Merry to everybody out there that's saying hello in the chat, by the way. appreciate all the nice wishes for Christmas and the holiday season and all that good stuff. So back at you, everybody. I'm not going to respond individually to each one because we do have to talk football at some point. But just as far as that page goes with the links there, just for everybody, another quick note on that: bookmark that page. Even if sports betting isn't legal in your state, if you go on vacation for a week or two somewhere that sports betting is legal, you can jump in there and fire up those links and sign up for some sports books while you're in that state. So just keep that in mind. Bookmark that page and just visit it when you're going to a different state. See what's available to you, because a lot of good offers on there.
Yes. And Chuck Colum says he already did the promo. Thank you. We appreciate that. He was asking about the Hall of Fame promo. Yeah, the Hall of Fame promo is good for anybody year round. You can get $130 or 130-day subscription per count or per every 12 months. But we'll shout you out. I mean, we've got people that come up there 3 times a week. So when they're on their heaters. So yeah, that the Hall of Fame that's kind of our celebrating your successes, right?
Exactly.
So if you get big wins, throw them in there. I mean, Terry doesn't like to do it, so I have to screenshot his stuff and send it in there. But
I don't like to send mine out. I don't like to brag or toot my own horn. I just kind of, I do the act like you've been there kind of thing before. But yeah, I love seeing those come in, because I've said this on shows, over the years, when I'm having a crappy night or like, not winning a bunch of money or something like that. It's great. It really is rewarding for us, or at least me, the way I look at it, to see somebody that we gave tips to bank $150,000 or something like that, or 50K or $100. Like, it really doesn't matter what you're winning. I just love seeing our people make money out there, and it makes me feel good when I'm having a bad night or whatever. So yeah, keep them coming, gang. CC me on anything on Twitter. I rarely check my Twitter anyway, so let them pile up.
All righty. So we'll get back into the games. So not to fear. There's just the 3 games, and plus you got another hour behind us here. But back to the analysis for those looking for this. If you're looking for the NBA, you can get it on the YouTube channel that Ryan and Adam recorded an hour on that. It was live prior to us, but you guys can get that over there. We got the free article on the homepage from me, so you can check that out as well. So wrapping up the Packers here, of course, we talked a little bit about Rodgers. They had the 2 amazing running backs here. That's probably going to be the driving force behind their offense, because why not? It makes it a little tricky to know who's going to have the hot hand. Essentially, this duo has split their work almost down the middle for the vast majority of the season. Every now and then one of them gets a little ahead of the other, or someone gets dinged up, etc. That moves things around a little bit. You can play both these guys together. They're both capable pass catchers, and most of the touchdowns are going through these guys, either through the air or on the ground. So I think those guys are fine. When we get to the receivers, it gets a little trickier just because there's no dominant alpha receiver. You got Romeo Doubs, who was injured. He's their good rookie, one of 2 rookies. They're most talented rookie, but he's dealing with an injury, right? So he kind of isn't up to full speed. You've got Alan Lazard, kind of last man standing, the holdover from last year's crew, where most of them ended up on other teams this year. And then you got Watson, the other rookie, who comes in, he just scores a touchdown every other touch. So yeah, that's going to be sustainable. But those are the guys they have there. And then coming in at the tight end position, vast majority of work goes to Robert Tonyan Jr. Of course, he hasn't even come close to that magical 2020 season when he was seemingly teleporting himself into the end zone every other game. That kind of has gone away. He gets most of his stuff between the 20s at this point, but any of them, I mean, it's Aaron Rodgers, and even a diminished Aaron Rodgers, this is still a good opportunity for these guys against Miami. Anything else you want to wrap up there for Green Bay? And I'll let you start us off here with Miami.
I just think there's some interesting leverage situations, and that's kind of how I would make my decisions between these skill players. Like if I've got one lineup to build and I've got a spot and I'm saying, all right, I could go Aaron Jones, book some safety, 28.1% optimal rate, or I'm looking at AJ Dillon, 7,500 versus 5,700 for AJ Dillon. Yeah, I'm cutting down to a 17% optimal rate on the DK slate, but I'm jumping to 12.4% ownership, 4.6 leverage score. So I like the opportunities like that for tournament play, where I can just make a move to a guy who's still drawing a 50% snap share on the average, definitely has the skill set to get himself in the end zone, and touchdowns are king, right? All we really care about is if he's going to get himself in the end zone, and we know he's going to at least see some opportunity to do so. So I like making those pivots across 150 lineups. Of course, I would have plenty of shares of both running backs, plenty of shares of the receivers, the receiver core, but you can see a similar thing around Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs. If you look all the way down, Doubs is coming up only 1.7% optimal at 4,700, but he's only going to be 3.7% owned. So that's kind of like a sneaky tournament play to just maybe throw in there as a receiver, where Christian Watson, Alan Lazard are both going to be on 34.7 and 22.4% respectively. They both have like 30% optimal rates. decent boom score probabilities. Between those two, I would lean Lazard just because he's getting a little bit more leverage, 22% ownership versus a 29% optimal rate. So I would lean Lazard. I would just kind of play it, look at that leverage column, find the guys who are similarly optimal and make the decision against ownership. If you're building one lineup, get a nice spread between those options. If you're building 150. Did you
all right, setting you up here. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying. You had said, and then I'll let you start the Dolphins. I didn't know if you wanted to tee it up or you wanted me to keep on talking.
I see I'm getting a little lag right now. I'm plugged into the router, but up and down the East Coast, there's been lots of issues here.
Yeah, so, and that could also be coming from my end. Like I said before the show, this laptop has been giving me some issues.
Yes. So coming from the Miami side here, of course, you've got Tua Tagovailoa. Is the lefty accurate? What happens when you have to make him throw outside the hash marks? What are you keeping him from cover two? We'll have to see what happens here with the Packers, but it looks like some adjustments were made there by Miami. So we'll have to see if Tua can continue with that, because Miami's still not in the playoffs yet. They need to carve their own path here. Of course, we got the dual-headed monster here at running backs. Most backfields at this point are by committee, but you've got Jeff Wilson Jr. and Raheem Mostert in the remember me game every time they both set foot on the field, because they both played with the 49ers and were battling each other for backfield touches on a different team. Around the league. Miami seems to like that, because you know who else they have, though he will not be active today, is Myles Gaskin and Savon Ahmed, who played together at the University of Washington, because why not? In any event, leave those University of Washington guys out of it. You can go with either of the running backs here. You also have two phenomenal pass catchers with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Talk to us about the dynamic options, and will they access that upside today, Terry, in your estimation?
Yeah, I think we've got a good opportunity here. I like the skill players from this team, particularly the receivers with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. Both of those are dynamic players. You're getting a discount on Waddle by comparison, $7,200 on DK versus $9,000 for Tyreek Hill. But obviously, Tyreek is just the dominant force of the that's in this game anyway. He's coming up 57.2% owned, though 54.2% optimal. So it's a nice opportunity, and it's really not that bad a leverage score for a guy that's going to be that popular. So it is sitting right there. It's one that you can kind of put into a lineup and not have to worry about. It's almost like a safety play for a very expensive player. Obviously, we still need him to perform, need him to get a good handful of catches, get in the end zone and get his points. But I think just on the average, we're pretty much there. He's projected out just in our raw projections like a quarterback, essentially looking at these DK projections, 23.1. He's actually projected higher than his quarterback is, who Tua is sitting at 21. So by comparison, you're shaving off like 8 points of raw median projection if you drop down to Jalen Waddle, but you're getting a nice discount on the cost. You're getting a very nice discount on the ownership, 57.2 down to 32.2%, 32.9% optimal. That's still a nice median optimal rate. It doesn't compare that favorably to the 54% on Tyreek Hill, but when you're thinking about the idea of touchdowns to wide receivers, if one guy's catching it, the other guy isn't. So we've got some definite correlation there, negative correlation there. So if you just say, hey, I think Waddle's going to be the guy who's going to book me the 2 TDs, maybe Tyreek gets more catches, gets more yardage, but I want those touchdowns, I think you can dive in on some shares of Jalen Waddle at lower ownership and make sure he's a big part of plans. I would look to probably be a little bit over the field, even at 30% there. I think he's just a very good receiver. Then looking at the running backs, I could go either way with the running backs. Our tools definitely favor the Mostert side of it. He's the second ranked player in this game if we're sorting by optimal lineup rate at 34.1%. Going to be popular, but he's actually positively leveraged, 2.4 on the leverage score. And then you got to go way down the board to get to Jeff Wilson, 2.8% optimal rate, coming up 4.3% owned. So he's actually negatively leveraged at a small probability. So if I'm going with these running backs, I'm probably leaning Mostert in most of the builds, but I will reserve a certain amount of lineups for Jeff Wilson just so that I can be sure to have some shares of him, because he's another guy who they get down, inside the 10 or something like that. And, you get Mostert has run a few plays. He gets a rotation in there. He might get 2-3 cracks at the end zone from short. He gets one into the end zone. He could be a differentiator type of a play on a slate like this. So definitely don't want to rule guys like that out.
Yeah, and I know the next question is, what do we set rules? Do we change things? No, not on the 3-game slate. I saw somebody in chat say anything goes. Yeah, anything goes today. You're trying to corral the touchdowns for the most part when you get in a situation like this. And guess what? The shared backfields on today's slate, they'll share the touchdowns too. So that's something that I would not worry about as well. Also wouldn't worry about, I wouldn't force a tight end into the utility slot, but I wouldn't go against it if you're doing a 2 tight end build.
I wouldn't block that out. I would allow a couple players probably against the defense. Like, yep. I think to get a good pool of optimized lineups, you're going to probably have to allow 1, but I think I would bump that to 2, probably not 3 because that's just getting silly. But I think with 2, you're A-okay there. So yeah, definitely don't restrict too much. Let the lineup builders build lineups for you and then go through your usual sorting process to find the good ones. But yeah, I would not block out very much on this slate.
All right. So Mr. Ray 956, we're going to borrow his question. What is the top Green Bay wide receiver play? Well, I'm going to tell you what it isn't and why you should drop everything right now and go to No House Advantage.
Wow.
If you go over to No House Advantage, they are locking their $50,000 NBA tournament in 31 minutes here. 20,000 to first. I cannot stress this enough. It is 10% full. Sorry, those are my eyes. It's 7% full. There's 135 out of 2,400 in there right now.
If I was not on the air and not in New Jersey right now, I would be smashing that spot.
Yeah,
that's absurd.
Now, some people will come in late and fill that up. This kind of number, I will be surprised if it gets more than 30% full.
Yeah.
That means basically they are paying out $2 for $3 for every one that comes in. You're immediately getting value here. Yep. You have to monetize it. You have to get this correct. But here's a quick way to get 8 shots at half cost. Ready? Go in through our link here. Create your No House Advantage account. Your first deposit will match it up to $100. You put in $100, they'll give you $100. That's 8 tickets into today's contest that's going to have sick overlay. I don't throw that term around, sick and smash, stone and all that platitude. This is a sick, smash, stone lock. Get your ass in that tournament because it's going to go away in 30 minutes. You're going to be wishing you had something in there. Think of it as a lottery ticket. This is top heavy contest, but damn, that is some potential serious return on investment. So again, we have projections for you for No House Advantage for NFL as well as NBA for free. We also build out optimal lineups for these contests for you for free. Those are available on Stokastic. They have their own lineup generator within their site. You can highlight players that you want to, focus on players you want, and you build out cards for yourself and then load them into their contests all within their site. They're running this overlay. I don't think they were expecting it to be like this. They're kind of new. First time around the block. Everybody gets caught cold because at noon, Christmas lock on Christmas morning burns all of the West Coast people, because how many people are done unwrapping presents before 9 out there? Even if you got little kids and you're up to crack of dawn, this is an East Coast special or the D-Gen special. Get in here on No House Advantage. You're crazy not to do this. How do you get in? Or how do you play? It's you pick from their player props. These are static lines. They post them. Think of them as salaries. They don't change with news. Guess what? Salaries don't change with news on the other DFS sites. You decide to go over or under. They're going to put some wiggle room in here because they want you to make some stands. So there are going to be some you're like, shit, I'm definitely going over on this one. And there's going to be others like, no way in hell I'm picking the over on that. I'm going to take the under, right? This is all gets down to the game theory. We sort all that out there for you. We tell you the win probabilities of things. We even put them out into descending order of your best probability plays. Terry's run the math on this. We've talked about this on our No House Advantage centric shows. We'll put out 400 or 500 lineups for you. About every 100 lineups you go down, you're losing 0.5% win equity. That's nothing, because we hear Adam and Alex and all those guys talk about 150 maxing those other contests when they're trying to get different, and the showdown Shaman Neil Orfield, when they're trying to get different, they're accepting 10 to 20% discounts on their win probabilities, not 0.5. Okay, so it's all math. It all works out. We got you. I want to point that out. It's a shit ton of money. You're not going to see that again. I don't swear that often. This is a moment.
He is fired up, gang.
Well, it's the Mucinex talking here. Daytime Mucinex. I took a big swig before the show. I'm going to be taking a little nap after the show. Still fighting through this podcast. Somebody asked, what are you drinking today? Well, Mucinex and a lot of water. So maybe some orange juice. So.
Hey, just
right.
for the person who teed up the question about the Packers receivers there.
Yes.
If you're playing on DK, I'm thinking maybe Lazard at 5,500. Just looking at the numbers, 6.9 on the leverage score is very appealing. 30% optimal rate and 22.4% owned. So if you're on DK, I would lean Lazard for that answer. If you're on FanDuel, I might be able to give you an answer quickly. Nope, not going to be able to because I didn't have it sorted. Hold on half a second here. If you're on FanDuel, same answer. Alan Lazard, 9.9 leverage score, 31% optimal, 21% owned over on FanDuel, 6,400. So I like that spot for Lazard. It's going to be touchdown dependent again. That's how he typically is. But at those ownership numbers and the optimal rates with that price, I kind of like that spot. So Lazard on both sides, but all three of them are decent options.
All right. Yeah. Chat having fun at my expense, being like, well, I told the Mucinex story on Friday. Yeah, I'm still taking it here on Sunday, but they're saying,
we can hear.
Oh, it's got XYZ. That's why you're tripping balls. I'm like, I don't know. My nose isn't running anymore. The headache's gone away, and I'm not coughing as much. I'm feeling better. That's the euphoric feeling. Or is it the purple drink? I don't know. I will say, feeling a little flushed now. I may have to lose the Santa hat at some point. That's probably all the lights on in here.
Get you overheated.
Yeah, I'm wearing sweaters and stuff. But there you go. All right. Anything else from this game? I told you guys we get through all this. But again, that no house advantage thing. That's serious time about that. You got 26 minutes left. Take advantage of that one.
Plenty of time. Only 2 other games. But no, I mean, you could take some shots on Gajewski if you wanted to at the tight end, but he's not really mashing through any of our numbers here. Tanya, same deal, both touchdown dependent. I think you can obviously take tight end plays. They're gonna typically be touchdown dependent type guys. So either one of those guys is fine. Nothing else really stands out. Just maybe some lotto ticket shots around like a Trent Sherfield type of a receiver if you wanted to, but nothing else I'm really seeing here.
All right, let's move on to our second game. Hey, for those of you that want the tools along at home, you haven't tried out Stokastic yet, go into the link below us here in the YouTube description. That's where you can also find that No House Advantage link. Someone was asking about that. You can also get the BetMGM link down there as well. But go in here and you can get 3 days of all access NFL. By going through that link. You can try out every NFL tool that we have. You also get access to the Discord. So you can check that out for 3 days free. Moving on to the Broncos and the Rams, 2 teams not really playing for much. Russell Wilson going to be back under center, missed the last game with a concussion. Hopefully he woke up and thought, wow, this season was just a bad dream, right? Sorry, Russ, not so much. On the other side, we've got the Rams, who also, hey, remember when they won the Super Bowl? Yeah, I don't think they do either. Baker Mayfield now starting on the quarterback for them. They're without Cooper Kupp. They're with Cam Akers. They tried to get rid of him and then go with Gerald Henderson Jr. Guess what? Henderson, I think it's Gerald, long gone, or Daryl Henderson Jr., whoever it is, gone. He got waived, got claimed by Jacksonville, was with them for 3 weeks, never suited up, released again. Wow, not for long. That's what NFL stands for, not for long. Who are we looking at in these games? Well, roll the dice with Wilson if you would like. The Rams are without Aaron Donald. They're missing a few other people on defense. They're not going to get anybody hurt today. This has a low total under 40. Kind of a bit of a disaster. The Denver has the number 1 passing DVOA and rushing. They're up there in the rushing DVOA as well. So their defense is pretty good. On the flip side, you've got the Rams with the 5th best rushing DVOA. I don't know that I buy that with their missing people, but the Denver Broncos are down on their 8th running back. Their backfield right now wasn't with them to start the season. How crazy is that? Again, not for long. What do you want to do here with Courtland Sutton potentially coming back? Do we trust Russ, or do we say this is 6 quarterbacks in the player pool and one's named McSorley and one's named Mayfield? Yikes. Yeah. Russell Wilson not looking too bad right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're going to need shares of ugly quarterbacks. I'll take my shares of Russ for sure. There's at least the memory of talent there and memory of capability there. And I will take shots on Baker Mayfield as well here. I mean, just looking at the pricing, he's not overly optimal. He's overowned, negatively leveraged on both sites, under 10% optimal. But you need quarterbacks. You need to play some of these guys. And there's nobody that's really standing out so tall. There's nobody that's completely without warts on this slate that I could say, hey, there's no chance that Baker's going to be my top scoring quarterback here. So especially since he's coming in 6% owned on DK, 7% owned on FanDuel. If I just double that up 12, 15%, somewhere around there, I'll take my shots and I'll be fine. And I'm not sacrificing that much of the quarterback portfolio. I like the Russ side a little bit better. I think there's probably a little bit more talent there. There's the optimal rate, 14.7%, dead even with his ownership level on the DK slate as of my last update. Similar numbers on the FanDuel side. It's been a struggle. It's been ugly. Everything in this game is ugly. So I do think on a slate with 6 QBs over the fields, that might be challenging. 15%. I think I would probably be around the field on us. I would just take my shares of them and kind of roll with it. But yeah, they're both going to be in play across 150 lineups. If you're just building one lineup for tournaments, first off, don't play that way unless it's a single entry. But if you are, building just one lineup, lotto ticket style to throw into a GPP, there are crazier things than playing Mayfield in that lineup on this quarterback slate, right? It's not going to be the safe play. It's going to be a play that requires a lot of risk tolerance because you're most likely going to lose 95% of the time. You're going to lose on that play, but that 5% is going to pay you out significantly if it hits. So these are the things you have to keep in mind, especially if you're only building one lineup to drop into a tournament. You want that lineup to have a lot of potential payout when it wins. So that's what we're looking for. We're not looking to be right. We're looking to get paid when we win.
All righty. Let's see what else we got cooking here. Besides Russ, that is. The Rams, God, it's really tough to get to anybody here. This just kind of mix and match. You don't know what's going to happen. That's why they play the games. We see this. Houston, what's up with Houston? The Texans, they're playing teams tough and surprising the hell out of a lot of people. That's not supposed to happen, right? We saw a couple upsets yesterday. There's reasons they play this game. This game could be
about the NFL is that there are no good teams. All of these teams are bad, and any team can beat any other team any given week. It's a bad league. I mean, there's no, I hate to say it. I don't enjoy the product that much one game at a time. I think they have a lot of flaws, and the competitive balance, so to speak, I think is one of the flaws, because that's why we've been getting these ridiculously ugly games in prime time and, these featured games where you're trapped in just watching one game and it's complete crap. And this is going to fall into that category, this game. We could see some fireworks. You never know. But yeah, I just think this is just going to be a total mess here. And that's why the Texans are competitive in a lot of these spots. That's why bad teams are playing well against good teams and holding them down. So yeah, there's a couple good teams. I shouldn't say there's none. The Eagles are pretty good, as much as that pains me to say it.
Yes.
I just wanted to make Mikey celebrate in the background.
Yeah, producer Mike's dancing around in the background here. You guys can't see him. Richie with the $25 super chat. Merry Christmas, EMac and Terry. Thanks for all the great work. Good luck today. Thank you. Good luck to everybody
good luck to you,
out
gang.
there as well. I'm going to make sure I didn't miss another super chat because I see my window froze here, but let me just
scroll on that. And to be clear, I love football for DFS. I enjoy this. And I think that for our purposes, I think it makes it really interesting. It makes it difficult and frustrating because you get so many of these oddballs and so little reliability, but that creates a ton of variance slate to slate. So it is very fun for DFS. I just think the league is just in a bad spot right now in terms of the product.
Yeah. And funny enough, I went from hating the island games to loving them from a couple perspectives. One, I'll have them on in the background, so I'm listening to them, but I'm usually prepping for the tomorrow's article or writing other articles, doing, busy work or stuff like that. So it's on in the background. And then I've got, I love doing the showdown lineups. And then I also am doing some sports wagering or props. I'll put up some ridiculous 10-leg prop. And, I missed turning in my $10 into 900 because I just needed 7 more yards from Khalil Herbert yesterday, and then I can't get mad because I needed like another 50 rushing yards from Justin Fields, so I wasn't going to get that anyway. But damn it, I got 8 out of 10 earlier this week. I got 9 out of 10 in an NBA one. Missed it because of Zion, right? But
you should have had that one, I feel like.
Yeah, so I put on one of whatever game I'm going to be watching or having on the background, usually the late NBA game. In my case, sometimes that's a 9:00 game because I tend to go to bed a little early, but I'll build out some ridiculous low dollar parlay and have some fun with that. So for me, all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is kind of fun. Gives me a little bit of interest. And if nothing's going on, what the hell? It was $5 or $10 and I just walk away from it. I don't worry about it. But for me, I found more enjoyment than the chaos of red zone where everything's going on at 150 lineups and what the hell am I leveraging against, and which chalk busted and which play did I avoid that is now, crushing me. I don't like that anymore. It's just not as fun for me. I like it for NBA. I like it for baseball, but for NFL, I don't. So I've really gotten into these showdown slates. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. See, I really enjoy the showdown slates and started to this year. Like I barely played them except for, we would do shows on Sundays. So I would play some Sundays, but I wasn't even playing like full slates. I was just dropping lotto tickets and stuff. And this year I got into them a lot more. So I am really enjoying that. I'll have the game on, like you said, but like I'll put that game on my TV and then I'll have my NBA stream on the computer and I'll have the sound on NBA and the football game on mute. Red zone all day Sunday. I do still enjoy because it's a big part of what I object to is the presentation, the Fox, the CBS, the NBC, the presentation, the just endless commercials, the standing around, the terrible announcing. It's just, there's just a lot of bad product. Although shout out to my buddy Kevin Burkhardt. He's one of the best out there, best in the business. Nice. Not that he's watching.
All right. So kind of wrapping up the Denver and LA. I don't hate any player on this or any option on this. It's hard to give much of a vouch of confidence with anybody. Okay. With the running back, actually prefer Denver from pretty much every perspective, but there's still 19 total is ahead of just the Rams and the Cardinals. So it's not like these guys are awesome. They're 4 or 5 full points away from everybody else, a touchdown behind Miami. So even though we're liking these guys, it's just like, it's hard to know what's going to happen. Welcome to the NFL. Welcome to actually picking a chaotic sport in any of our sports in a 1-game sample size. We don't know what's going to happen. We'll make educated guesses, and ideally we're right more often than we are wrong. But Wilson coming back does give a little boost to this one, at least make it somewhat interesting. Cam Akers seems to have consolidated that backfield. At some point, don't they got to give their young running back a few more touches? Who knows? It's just everything's kind of a mess here for this game. Just major disappointments throughout the season. Who would have? I mean, think of how many primetime games we got Denver on. They thought they were going to pull magic with Peyton Manning and recapture that with Russell Wilson because he's adding a team with a hell of a lot of skill position players and a bunch of an amazing defense. Well, guess what? Skill position players all got hurt. So, and Russ wasn't bad, right? This game could have been so good. Defending Super Bowl champions. Well, they have 4 wins right now. If they're stuck on 4 wins, that's going to be the lowest in Super Bowl history from a team going from winning the Super Bowl to only putting up 4 wins, right? That's the worst ever. So we can't expect all this. But let's talk about Tampa Bay, or is it Tampa Bay, as I like to mention it? I'm a huge Joe Montana fan, but even I'm going to say Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. Probably he won that mantle about 7 years ago. I couldn't even argue it then. Now I'm just like, what the hell? I don't even say it ironically at this point. He's the greatest.
If anything, he's tarnishing his numbers now.
At this point,
around too long. Yeah.
At this point, yes. But TB12 lining up to make the postseason yet again. Think of how crazy that is. It basically 2 more wins from Tampa Bay and they're in the postseason.
Yeah, and assuming they're in, would you bet against him? Would you rule him out as taking this team and putting it on his back, or not necessarily putting it? But I mean, they've got so much skill still on that team. Like they've just been underperforming, I feel like, all season long. So I wouldn't bet against him making a little bit.
Aside from their offensive line, just been dodgy, and their coaching staff, which all of a sudden seems completely overmatched, which is wild because who's it? Todd Bowles and Leftwich, right? They're kind of under the Bruce Arians tree. How is this hard? Plus, then you got Brady, who's like another coach, although he seems to be maybe moving in a different direction than the actual coaches. I don't know, but he's the one that got rid of the other coach that took him to a Super Bowl. Yeah, so who knows?
That might be the conflict that's causing a little bit of chaos, making this team look a little bit ugly. Just hey, real quick before we do jump to this game though, as far as the skill players in that other game, the Denver LA game, like you said, it's just kind of a mixed bag where you can stick your hand in and whatever you pull out of that bag is going to be fine. And by fine I mean around 20 to 30% optimal on both sites. Reasonable boom score probability. Nobody's exorbitantly priced. Nobody's exorbitantly overowned, but everybody is negatively leveraged because not a single player looks all that good, and they're all priced and owned appropriately, right? So you're not dealing with great opportunity or great probability for most of the skill players, but they are certainly capable and should be in lineups is basically the way I'd say it. But nobody I even really want to zero in on.
You know what that flips instantly with for any of them to suddenly become the play? A touchdown.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
We're hunting for.
It's like your 9-hole hitter getting a home run. Still counts as a home run, right? So, yeah, they don't look great, but there's nobody I'm Xing out from either team.
Right.
I'm not pushing to get any of them, but I'm not taking them out either. I won't get to Mayfield. I won't really get to Russ because I'm trying to weigh in on Tua here and Tom Brady, which, hey, guess what? So is the rest of the crowd, but that's all right. Yeah. But yeah, they're not bad touchdowns.
What do we think across 3 games? What are we thinking? 30 touchdowns available today, maybe?
Something are you crazy?
What's that?
4 per game, 12 touchdowns available.
4 per game? Is that the number that we use? 4 per game?
That's what I'm using.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So that's a even smaller number. So you want to grab as many of those touchdowns in every lineup as you possibly can. That's the game we're playing today. It's not
and that's four offensive touchdowns. Like I'm not if there's a pick 6 or whatever, no, just 4 offensive touchdowns per game.
Okay. Yeah. I was giving each side 3 and doing the math that way. But
yeah, basically similar. So yeah. Turn one of them into a field goal, maybe a field goal trip ends up into a touchdown, right? But it's about that, right? So point being, not that many.
Right.
Not that many.
Right. So. And yeah, I said 30, I meant 18. I was just saying with 6.
I was like, Terry, get some of that purple drink over to you, baby.
I did 6 times 6 instead of 6 times 3 in my head when I did because I'm dumb.
All right. So
figure 12.
Back to this. People ask, I wish I knew the status of Julio Jones. I don't, because I'm not going to play. There's one guy I'm not going to play. It comes back to bite me fine. Let others take that chance. He's cooked at this point. Doesn't it feel like a lifetime ago that it was opening week of the season? Julio Jones was looking spry. Godwin amazingly came back from that catastrophic knee injury and was playing. And then Evans looked pretty damn good. And all of a sudden, Russell Gage, who we thought was going to be a good best ball pick, fell off the radar. Well, that all changed even back then. I mean, Godwin got a different injury. Julio hasn't been the same since. I think he's only played in 7 other games this year, right? So, I mean, that feels like a lifetime ago. If I told you that was last season, you'd probably buy it, right? Oh, remember last year when Julio looked really good in the opener? No, that was this year. That was 15 weeks ago. And
that was a big topic, coming into the season. Hey, he's looking spry. He's looking good again. What can these guys do together? And not much. Turns out not much.
So on this team, I don't want any part of Julio Jones. I hope we don't know his status. I'm fine with Russell Gage. If Jones were
if Julio's on the field, if Julio's going to play and on the field, then
he's taking away from Scotty Miller and anybody else on the team. You don't want those guys.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's going to hurt those lower end plays. And just looking at the target shares, 4, 6, and 8 targets weeks 12, 13, and 14, 4, 5, 5 before that. So it's not that there's nothing there. So if he's out there, you can definitely take some shots. It's just not really coming through on our board right now because we don't know the status. We've got him 0.2% boom score probability and a flat 0% boom score probability on the FanDuel slate, projected for 4.69 FanDuel points. But that's, going to change obviously if we get some news.
But yeah, so mine is more, I'm hoping he wants to, yes, producer Mike, we can do that. So I'm hoping that we end up with just an unknown. I don't really want to play him. I'm hoping people go to him. And I'm hoping this is one of those, if he's active, it's like, well, it's just get him loose, see what's going on out there. They don't need him to win this game. Do they need him healthy down the stretch? Do they need him in the playoffs just as another alternative, someone the defense has to worry about? Yes.
Yeah, that would make their offense.
Do they need him for tonight? No. So I'm sort of playing into that a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. But if they get in those spots where, hey, do you need a home run hitter? Do we want to, do we need a big shot, big play? And you get one of those. That's really all you need. He
based on the last 3 weeks of play by Tampa Bay, that is in the cards. That is in the cards today. But that's interesting. The running backs, I think you can play them both together. Hey, again, we said that all backfield by committee state you can play together. I would lean a little bit more towards Rachaad White, get a little bit of a discount on him. Additionally, we're hoping for some mop-up duty. Does that mean he's better than, Leonard Fournette? I don't know. Do you have to be the starter to be named to the Pro Bowl as a running back? I don't know. Ask Tony Pollard, see how that worked out. But the point being is just, they're both fine. Fournette is not, he's done enough for them in the playoffs and stuff. They know they need both of them healthy. This has been a long season. They still have 3 more games to go, and then they're going to end up playing wild card, or they're playing the first weekend, right? There's no bye for them if they do make the playoffs. So I think we see a shared backfield. I'm totally fine with that, and my guess the fresher legs would get more of the fourth quarter action, get them some reps. So I would lean into that for White, but that does not mean I would not play Fournette, and I prefer Godwin. He was buying. I think I ended up ranking him as my number 1 multiplier play today on the Showdown slate. I do have that free article on the homepage here. My number 2 was Mike Evans. I think on Evans, you can probably put him number 1 on FanDuel, less worried about the PPR. How many multi-touchdown games do you think Mike Evans has in his career? I think he's played 135 games, I think is what it was.
32.
That would be a lot. That would be a lot.
It would be a lot, but he was a very good receiver. All right. It's not 18. That far off. I missed by less than half.
Yes. I mean, you're pulling number right. You're pulling out thin air. The point is,
right. He's a guy who's been an excellent receiver for a number of years. So,
yes, if I remember it correctly,
I feel okay about my guess.
2 or 3 games of 3 touchdowns. Then all of them were 2 touchdowns, and obviously because multi-touchdown games. But the final one was a 1 reception, a 1 fumble recovery touchdown.
Oh, that's a funky one. Okay, interesting.
Throwing that out there. So,
hey, how much Tampa D are you going to in this spot?
I'm totally comfortable with Tampa D. I'm comfortable with the Arizona D today. Okay. I'm also comfortable with Denver, and I'm comfortable with the Rams, even though they're shorthanded. I don't really want Green Bay or Miami defenses.
So you're just looking to avoid the game with potential for scoring?
Yes.
Essentially, these other 2
well,
games
and actual good quarterbacks who are not 46 years old.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of how I'm thinking about it as well. I'm just starting to look at the defenses only, and looking at our board, we've got the Tampa Bay defense at 3,300 on DK as a 16.7% boom score probability. The next highest boom score probability among the defenses is Denver at 6.2. So we're talking about 3 times more probable to have a boom kind of a day, a 5x plus 10 kind of a day, or excuse me, what do we define it as here? Probability of achieving positional target score based on chance of being the top 1, 2. It's not 5x plus 10. That's the NBA boom, but optimal 35.1% of the time on DK for the Bucs D. The next most optimal, again, Denver at 24.9%. So those are some big gaps, and they're only a -1 leverage play. They're going to be owned 36% of the time, but I would not have much of an issue just firing up a lot of Bucs defense, be beyond the field. If you wanted to tell me, hey, 50% of my lineups on DK, I'm going to have the Bucs D, and then the other 50% I'm going to spread between these other 5 teams or the other 3 teams in the games that aren't going to have scoring, I think I would be pretty fine with that because of the matchup here for the Bucs. It's just a soft spot going up against this quarterback. There's a lot of opportunity there, and I don't think they're getting as much ownership as technically they should with those probability numbers.
That makes sense. For those of you that are still trying to get into No House Advantage, you can do it. Looks like we're at, and I can't get my computer refreshed, but it looks like this got up to 20%. That NBA contest locks in 4 minutes. It means 80% overlay. That's just, we call that ridiculous. I don't even know what else.
That is insane. Get in that tournament, guys. If you're in the sound of our voice and you can play in your state, take 5 minutes and jump into those tournaments, because that is.
And so what I'm doing now is I've put in selections must be made in August one. I'm trying to get. Remember how we said we're not sure if it. Hold on, let's go 3-pointers.
If you can change it with post lock or
whatever. If you can change it. So I've smashed in a lineup here. Okay, so I'm gonna see if I can change it. I didn't pick anything in the first game, and I just went through and picked things I would be relatively comfortable with. I may be lighting $25 on fire, whatever. But even then, okay, it's 14% full.
That's insane. That is completely ridiculous.
I'm speechless. There we go. That doesn't happen very often. There we are.
That's almost as good as the money back NBA tournament on FanDuel. I mean, it's
pretty much
right there. They're essentially paying out, very, very similarly anyway. Hey, yeah,
Roscoe
Ruben
Music
Lindley in
says
chat,
yes. You can't.
or excuse me, Ruben Lindley was giving the right answer. Devin Neiman in chat was asking who has a bigger day, Hopkins or Waddle. And since I was just talking about the opportunity for Tampa's D in this spot, I do think it's Waddle. I think between the two, is there a talent gap? Probably not. Or you could say, that Hopkins is the more talented of the two. But just given the spot that Hopkins is in here in his game, I just see much more opportunity for Waddle to have at least his typical day, if not a big upside game. So it would be Waddle for me, like the chat was answering there.
All right, we'll kind of wrap up here with Arizona. Producer Mike, if you just want to let me know in chat where we are with the technical stuff, we can audible from there. So McSorley is your quarterback. Maybe he can run. Who's rooting for him? Penn State fans. That's about it. I'm just whatevs. We have James Conner.
One lineup gun to your head: McSorley or Mayfield.
Mayfield.
I think
Mayfield's got experience, and that's key to me. It's not like he hadn't started whatever he is, 45 games or whatever it is. So even though he's going against tough defense, he can at least survive.
I think there's a little bit more edge there. Looking at McSorley at that DK price though, that's 4,800 for a quarterback is a little bit compelling. 6,400 on FanDuel, a little bit of a different play. 4,800 for a QB is a little bit appealing. Even in a mediocre game, you could probably squeeze a little bit of value out of that. So that's kind of interesting to me. And it's showing through 7% owned, coming up in terms of the optimal lineup rate at just 5.3%. But if you remember when we were talking about Mayfield, that's why I asked the question. It's fairly similar on the optimal rate. So if we're going to be playing Mayfield in 150 lineups, it's the same kind of a situation where easy enough to double up or get close enough to doubling up 7% ownership and not really killing yourself. But now we are talking, all right, if I'm going 12-15 on Baker, 12-15 on McSorley. Now I'm giving away 25-30%. It's still not that bad on a slate like this. So I think I'd be looking to double up on those guys and take my opportunity around trying to find some touchdowns with some skill players, maybe put together a bit of a differentiated lineup because I can pay up for multiple skill players if I'm paying down at QB. So just a lineup construction game theory angle into the slate, I think.
All right, we're going to go for another 5 minutes or so here. We'll get some technical difficulties on the back end. We'll see if they can't get sorted out or all come in. Might be warming up.
As long as nobody scratched in the Knicks game, I think we're fine. I can just stay on.
Yeah, I'm good.
We're locked now, so
we made this a 3-man booth. Good, works for me. I'm not going anywhere. I got till 2:30 till I got to make these NBA lineups. So. Okay, let them know that's what's going to happen. Let Chris know. We'll finish up Arizona here, and then we'll bring Matt in with us. And Terry, you good to stick around?
Yeah, I'll hang out.
All right, on-air production meeting. You got family, so if you got a dip, that's no problem. I got nothing. Maybe a little bathroom break when we go to the crossover. Play some Christmas music, but there we go.
Yeah, actually,
look at that. We got you guys covered.
2 minutes to go up and maybe refill the coffee. I'll be
I think we got that. So don't worry. We got another hour because you guys are going to want in and get to the Gajewski takes here on this stuff. But breaking down the final stuff here with James Conner, and breaking down is the keywords. When the hell is he going to break down? I think his last 7 games, he's averaged like 96% of the snaps. No, that's wrong, right? That's just absolutely wrong. I went and looked at his contract last night when I was writing this up because I'm like, well, what is it? It's essentially fungible. He does have 1 more year on his deal, but if he gets cut, because contracts really mean nothing at this point in the NFL, if he gets cut, it's just a $2 million cap hit. At this point, if you're a coach under siege, aren't you doing everything you can just to try to keep the games close? And if that means beating James Conner, so be it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's exactly what's happening here. Looking at the snap shares, going back week 10, 96%, then 77%, then 97, a bye week, 95, 91. That is a lot of snaps to be on the field for a running back. But running backs are just, they're commodities. These are 4th-round picks, 5th-round picks. You can swap them. They're interchangeable parts. I was talking about that with my sister's boyfriend at Christmas dinner last night. It's very much a situation where several years ago, the NFL just kind of realized it's not about the talent at running back. It's about the ability to open the holes for these guys. And as long as you're fast and you can cut a little bit and you can run that way into the right hole, you're going to have an opportunity here and you're going to be an interchangeable part. So these teams don't really mind going through running backs and just kind of churning and burning. And that's kind of the situation we're seeing here with Conner. They can just smash him into the ground if they need to. So I think that is what we're seeing. But yeah, considering the fact that he's going to be out there that much, most likely, and he's going to be seeing a lot of snaps, he is appealing. He's coming up 5% boom score probability across both sites because he's 7,000, 7,500. He's going to be owned 35% of the time on DK, 37% on FanDuel, but similarly optimal on both sites. So I do think there's some appeal there for Connor for sure.
Yeah, and rolling everything else out there, I think on the showdown, look to AJ Green. He's played about 50 or 60% of the snaps in the last couple games. He's $200 on DK. They have a whole bunch of $200 players today on DK that are going to be on the field. He at least has a decent chance of getting some looks because, one, we already know that young and inexperienced quarterbacks tend to go to the tight ends. So, two, we got McBride is the last tight end standing because Zach Ertz is out.
I've always got McBride.
Yeah, good, but a rookie. I think he won whatever the tight end of the year award was for college, but again, a rookie. So, I think you're going to see veteran AJ Green. You're going to see DeAndre Hopkins pulling some hot routes there. I really like Hopkins today, just from a 6 to 8 at least target perspective here. You've got Hollywood Brown dinged up. You've got Moore is out. You've got Rondale Moore is out. So they've just got injuries everywhere. So I do like the various options, hoping in full PPR that this is just kind of a pop gun offense. Would I have preferred this to be a pop gun offense with Colt McCoy? You bet your sweet Bippy I would. But we're left with what we're left with here, right? And McSorley's not going to be thrown downfield very much because is he even going to have the time to? So that is kind of where I'm liking different Arizona pieces. I like most of the Arizona pieces over the players in the prior game. But again, I'm not shying away from most of these folks other than Julio Jones, right? Just and I stated why.
Yeah, and that's again situational. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, and somebody going back to the Hopkins question, just looking at him in this one, 7,500 on DK isn't bad price wise. He's 8,400 on FanDuel, which is cutting into his boom score probability only 2%, or excuse me, not 0.9% on FanDuel, 11.7% optimal. A little bit more meat on the bone there on DK, 14.7% optimal, 11.8% owned. So I guess there's a little bit of room there, but he's just not popping the same way that Waddle was for me. So I think my answer stays the same there, but he would be in play. Trey McBride, the guy who, out of all the McBrides around all the leagues, when I'm watching one of these shows, not on one, and somebody says their name and I go, oh, they're talking about me. This is the guy that makes me do that the most because his name looks almost exactly like mine. I'll have some, but he's not really popping through our probability marks. But yeah, I think pairing him with McSorley in a handful of lineups, it definitely makes some sense because, like you said, rookie QB going to have that outlet to tight ends quite a bit. So I do like that pairing if we're going to the McSorley lineups.
All right, we're going to wind this up. We'll go to the crossover here. We got a super chat, and I do want to call it that. No, I was incorrect. That No House Advantage contest is locking with the next set of games. I don't know. I think I must have misunderstood that. Still, it's 15% full. If everybody hits this NBA lock, which they have, and NFL lock, which is up in an hour, are they circling back to No House Advantage? No, probably not if they're outside of my earshot. Right. Especially
not because a lot of them that are playing DFS, traditional DFS, are going to have to go in and make sure their lineups are okay for that in that space. So, I mean, there's not going to be
dealing late something, whatever. So it's not quite the phenomenal thing. I will be shocked if it gets above 30%.
Yeah,
this is just between us chickens here. This is going to be a good one. And then Jorge Acome put out a super chat here. Who would be in your single entry Millie stack? He's late to the party, but who's going to be the Arizona quarterback today? That's going to be McSorley. He is from Penn State. I think he's played he's appeared in maybe 15 NFL games over the last, I think he's been in the NFL for like 3 seasons. So a lot of those were kneel downs or just kind of bupkis, going from memory here, but I think he's like 18 for 36, 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions. It's something like that. He doesn't have a lot of reps. He doesn't have very many dropbacks. So he's the guy that's going to be there. Does have a little bit of rushing upside, but hey, so do all young quarterbacks because they will tuck the ball and run when pressure happens and pressure
for their lives. Yeah.
Usually within the first 2.7 seconds
There's a difference between wanting to roster a guy because he can run because they're doing design Justin Fields style plays for him and is possibly the best running back in the league playing quarterback. And there's a difference between that and a rookie who's running for his life and scrambling. So a little bit different. Not something we really want to target with fantasy line. Or I said rookie, but inexperienced NFL.
Inexperienced.
He's 27 years. He's been in the league, but not a starter.
So who's your single entry stack? And we'll wind her down with that. I believe he plays on the DK, but it's going to be probably the same. I'll this.
DK, we're talking just top stacks. Which team would I look at
for a single entry?
Let me pull up our old top stacks tool.
And while you're looking for that, I would still play the chalk. I would go Miami 1. I would go Tampa Bay 2. Yes, Tampa Bay. And then I would go Rodgers 3, but then I would start to look different elsewhere, either by an onslaught where I'm playing like a running back and a tight end and a receiver, maybe even 2, Buffalo onslaught style, or I'm going, something weird and both running backs from Green Bay or both running backs from Tampa Bay. I'm doing something to get weird at the other spot. That would be for my differentiation.
That's an interesting way to approach it. And I agree. I think I would probably lean into the Miami side. That was my preferred side when we were talking about that game. That is, of course, the highest scoring opportunity game on the board. We've got a very capable quarterback who I think has our highest quarterback projection, but he's definitely going to be owned. It's not like you're going to be sneaky or secret there. So depending on the size of that tournament, how many lineups out there are there out there, and what does our win equity look like, you could make the argument. And I know Jorge there probably has some decent risk tolerance because he's always tossing out generous super chats, so I assume he's got some risk tolerance there. So maybe you look at one of the oddball QBs and go that route and take the oddball cheap QB, load up with his high-end receiver. Like if you went McSorley, McBride, and Hopkins, and then you're going to have a lot of money to spend at all your other skill player positions. It's a thin needle to thread, but it's not non-existent. Same story with Baker Mayfield. Like I was saying, at 5-ish% ownership, 5-ish, 10-ish% optimal, it's not great in terms of probability, but if it does connect on a short day with only 6 options out there, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Baker throws 3 touchdown passes. Nobody else throws 3. Nobody else goes off for 500 yards or something like that. That would make it an equivalent kind of a game. And once you do that, you're trimming the 100,000 player pool down, entry pool down very significantly to probably under 1,000 lineups that you're competing with. So it really, really has an impact on the competition if you make that connection. So really depends what kind of a lineup you're looking for. Safer tournament lineup, I would lean toward the Dolphins.
All right, stay right here. We're going to do a quick crossover. Be right back. We got 2,000 people watching. Hit that like button. Come on, we get us up to 400 when we come back here. Special potential mix and match guests. We're going to dip into the virtual green room and figure this all out. Stay tuned, gamers. Be back in 2 minutes.
Hey, Merry Christmas. Thank you all for being a part of this. Really, we appreciate you. Look, we have our Discord cooking. We have these offers happening with BetMGM. I'm going to tell you all about that. We're trying to give back and provide some cool stuff each and every day, but we should be doing this. Every day should be Christmas in the sense of that we should be giving back and thanking you for being a part of this. And I know that sounds cliche, etc., but the reality is that we can't build towards 50,000, towards 100,000. We can't do this without really having you as a base of it. So I don't want to waste your time and go through all the long list of thank yous and everything. Just, we appreciate you wholeheartedly for being a part of this. You have no idea. So let's build our 5 and 5, shall we? 5 plays in 5 minutes. You know the drill. Let's begin now. All right, first play for us is going to be the Packers. We're going to take them plus 3.5. This was at 4.5. So if you got it at 4.5, congratulations. But still like what we can get here with Green Bay. I think there's a really strong opportunity to do that. And one thing that I do enjoy with this would be looking at the inside information angle. You may not know this, but Robert Saleh was Matt LaFleur's best man at his wedding. Or maybe it was the other way around, but I think it was that way. These two guys talk all the time. They're sharing information. They're sharing what happened. You don't think that Robert Saleh wants to see Matt LaFleur beat a Miami Dolphins team that could help him doing that? I mean, you don't see that at all? I think this is a great opportunity to take advantage of guys that talk, coaches that talk, guys that talk. The opportunity, if you will, for any coaching advantage or angle. Now, on top of that, you've got Aaron Rodgers, who's healthy. All right, that was a way too long on that. Let's just go to the Rams game because that's the next play. I almost wanted to take 2 minutes to talk about the Packers only because, like, do I really need a lot of time to talk about this next game? I would hope not. I mean, my God, I would hope not, right? So you don't need much outside of the Denver Broncos are reeling. And the problem that everybody's going to fall into, or the trap, if you will, that everybody's going to fall into is, well, the Denver Broncos clearly look good. They won. What are you talking about last week without Denver? Yeah, that.
Yeah, I gotta let that chat Baker is trash confirmed message go through. I had to let it through.
That should not be news to anybody.
Yeah.
You didn't already know that, chat. I don't have to tell you.
The less about the playbook he knows, the better he might be.
Maybe unregister if you're just finding out Baker Mayfield is trash.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Stokastic NFL DFS Sunday slate, live before lock, presented by No House Advantage. And there were no technical difficulties whatsoever for me or anyone else getting to this point in the show, but we are happy to be here. Merry Christmas, you guys. Hope you are with family, enjoying the day, and I'm certainly enjoying my time with Matt Gajewski. You know, the man, the myth, the legend, king of the NCAA and NFL streets. Follow him at Matt_Gajewski. How are you today, man? Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you too, man. I'm doing great. Huge sports day. About 18 different sports we're playing. So I'm pumped, man. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. But before we do, gotta do the usual, guys. We did pretty good today. You know, considering the holiday spirit, I was looking at the like numbers. It's okay. I honestly think that we have some goals to set here. You know, it being the holiday spirit, I think we could get, what do we say? We got 2,000 people in here, almost 350 likes. Gajewski, I think that people can get us to 500. Is that too much to ask?
No, we can do that.
We got 45, 46 minutes to lock. We could get to 500.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. Of course, you know our sponsor, No House Advantage, going to tell you about an awesome offer from them coming up, but we got a little bit limited on time. So let's just dig right in, Matt. Are there any actives or inactives in this 3-game slate that have really changed the way you're building lineups this morning?
No, not really. We had most of the information available to us this morning, so it's pretty easy, I think. The Broncos did call up Chase Edmonds. I think you could throw a flyer on him, but we'll talk about that more so when we get to the position by position breakdown. But otherwise, I think it's pretty cut and dry.
I think so too. Jeff Wilson being active, I guess, might change things for some. Just less certainty in that Dolphins backfield. It's not like it's a fantastic matchup anyway against that Green Bay defense, which is the only working thing. But again, by far the highest total game with Wilson active. I guess he becomes a large field flyer. That's really the only thing on my list. David Bakhtiari, the offensive lineman, Pro Bowl offensive lineman for the Packers, remains inactive. Not that the Miami defensive line are world beaters, but it does make that Green Bay offensive line certainly more vulnerable. You know, before we dig into the position by position, Matt, you know, this is a kind of a special 3-game slate. We've had a couple over the last few weeks, and it's not quite the same as Showdown, where you only have 2 quarterbacks to choose from. But do you have any, pointers or ways that you think about these 3 gamers that you try to think about regardless of the way these games break down, just because of the size of the slate?
I think there's a couple differences. One, correlation doesn't matter as much here, or I guess negative correlation is a better way to put it. Like if you're playing guys against your defense, it's going to happen naturally on a 3-game slate. You might end up with, like for example, if you ended up with a lineup that's Tom Brady, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and one of the Tampa Bay running backs, I wouldn't be worried about that. You just don't have a lot of alternatives. So correlation, I think, is key to think about. And then ownership, like 50% might not be enough for a player on this slate, whereas 50%, if you're using it as a heuristic, might be too much on a main slate. But it's 3 games. You can eat a little bit of chalk here, especially if you're playing under-owned players that are going to be severely under-owned compared to the regular slate. But that's about it. Plays pretty similar.
That makes sense to me. And obviously, game environments matter for all sizes of slates. But when you have only 3 games, and we know the natural variance of points scored in football games, if there is one game that becomes a shootout, that becomes that offensive-minded game, pass-heavy game compared to the others, that can be a huge point of advantage here. And especially when you're talking about a game that wouldn't be considered the highest total on the slate. So if you have any reason to believe that Denver, LA, or Tampa Bay, Arizona could be bigger shootouts than Green Bay, Miami looks like right now, that is a key way to differentiate yourself on a slate like today. Let's go into the quarterback position, though. We've only got, a couple of options here, but at the top, Tua Tagovailoa, highest in salary, followed by Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. Let's start with these first 3. Do you have a preference for any of these 3? And break down the top of the quarterback position for us.
Yeah, I think if you're playing cash games, Tua makes a lot of sense. You're just looking at the game environment overall. That's 49.5 total, far and away the highest on the board. They're favored at home, and he has elite weapons. Green Bay's defense, it's fairly strong, but it's not anyone that you're scared off. Essentially, if you run optimals across the industry in cash games, you get either Tom Brady or Tua Tagovailoa. So if you can't find a lineup that gets you up to Tagovailoa, I think you're fine going down to Brady. But I would rank them in that order. 1, Tagovailoa, 2, Brady, 3, Aaron Rodgers. That's just in a vacuum, not considering ownership.
It's funny because the ownership looks like it's going to be that order as well. Now, it's pretty close. Tagovailoa sitting at 32 to 33% projected ownership. Brady below him at 30%. Then you got Aaron Rodgers down below. So, sometimes the salary rankings and the ownership rankings are aligned. I kind of see it the same way. Do you see what they're calling you in chat, Matt, by the way? They're calling you...
I've seen a couple things.
Rapjeski.
I'm fine with it.
You, that name might stick. You, sir, have a serious knowledge bank. You thought he knows NCAA basketball or football, guys. The rap knowledge, unparalleled. Fantastic. And yeah, I see it the same way. With this Green Bay Miami game, I wanted to bring this up because I do think that there's a ton of variability in the way this game goes. Don't you think that this game could end up being a Dolphins win, but like 36 points scored?
Yeah, there's paths to it. I mean, we've seen the Packers fail how many times this year? I'm worried more about the Miami side. Like, I don't really think Green Bay is going to put up a lot of resistance on defense. They should have a lot of trouble covering the motion game with both Waddle and Tyreek Hill. My main questions are, can Green Bay keep it close to themselves? So I do have questions about it getting to the total, but it comes mostly from the Green Bay side.
Okay, that's fair. I guess the way I was seeing it too is that the Packers defense is much, much more of a run funnel than the Miami offense wants to play. Now, I'm not saying Miami's offense can't succeed here. When you got players like Hill, Waddle, and Tua playing the way he's playing this year, they're absolutely fine. But the Packers are 32nd in Football Outsiders run DVOA, and they're 8th in that same stat against the pass. It just gives me pause. It just gives me pause about what that game environment ultimately looks like. And it's obviously affecting how I want to play the quarterback position in my lineups because Tua, as we said on the slate, the number 1 quarterback. Let's look below them. We got Russell Wilson, 5,500. Good luck, everyone, if you want to play him. But then at the bottom, it's Trace McSorley, Baker Mayfield. These are players that are hard to stomach, and it might not be worth the salary discount. Any interest in these bottom 3 quarterbacks?
Yeah, I have interest more so in Trace McSorley because he's mobile. So you could just kind of get yourself there on a decent rushing game with maybe even like Tyler Huntley level rushing. McSorley was a good runner at Penn State. He just hasn't played really at all since the preseason, and for good reason. He's a 3rd-string quarterback. You're not going to get a lot of him out of the air. But the rushing upside is enough. We're at 4,800. If he runs his way, is efficient enough as a passer to get you to 15 points, that could be enough at the price because he's just so cheap. I'm not going to play any Baker Mayfield today. That's just more a function of the size of tournaments I'm playing. If you're playing Millie Maker style stuff, definitely understand the argument. It's more so leverage than anything Baker Mayfield's done because he hasn't done anything at all. But it's hard. I mean, you got to make tough decisions on this slate. If I'm punting, it's going to be with McSorley.
Buccaneers run defense, typically at the top of the NFL. They're down to 12th in Football Outsiders rush DVOA, 20th in yards allowed per carry, if that stat matters to you. If you apply that to the quarterback position, and we know Trace McSorley will take off and run, that would certainly be my option there. I almost have no interest in the quarterbacks from this Denver-LA game. It's just the limited upside, certainly limited rushing upside. Talk about dashed hopes and dreams of these two quarterbacks. I mean, from what we thought about them in their primes or whatever you could call Baker Mayfield's up years versus what we think of them now, I want no part of Russell Wilson. Anything else at the quarterback position you're seeing today, or did that pretty much cover it for you?
Tua is really hard to build with. I mean, if you build double stacks with Tua, it's nearly impossible.
Yeah.
So I think we should talk about that, just not Tua as a play, but with Tom Brady, you can build stacks in a number of ways. One, because he's much cheaper. Two, because he throws the ball to like 8 different players, and he has a couple main guys he throws to. But you also have Julio, and you have Russell Gage, and you have a pair of tight ends. Tua only throws to Tyreek Hill and Waddle. You play them together, you're going to be holding hands with the entire field that's doing that as well. We're talking about the most owned quarterback. People are going to stack on this slate just naturally, even people that are bad. People that don't know about stacking, you're going to just be funneled to it because of the limited games. Everybody that has Tua is going to have Waddle and Hill in some combination. And a lot of them are going to have both. All those lineups are going to have Atwell, punt tight ends, punt running backs. Your lineups are going to look exactly the same. So if you're playing large field, I'd be really careful with that.
It's a great point. And that's where the weird correlations or even negative correlations on a 3-game slate might come in handy, where you might play a quarterback with a running back or use something way off the board. But like you said, even that build, if you have the chalk Tua and Waddle or Tua and Hill stack, you're going to find the same punt plays around the industry because that's just kind of the way these slates go. Still, if you're looking at our top stacks tool over at Stokastic.com, the rating score and the probability score, number 1 for these Miami Dolphins on this slate today. Speaking of number 1, guys, I don't know if we've had a offer as good as this current BetMGM offer. And I know that this is a limited time offer. This is the number 1 play if you want to get into the Stokastic Plus premium family this Christmas Day. BetMGM has a promo right now where if you deposit $10 and settle your first bet, that means don't make a futures bet. You can make it on a money line. You can make it on a prop bet. It can be any sport, but it has to settle. And you got to use the link in the video description below. And at that point, you will get access to 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum because of our partnership with BetMGM right now. I'm just going to reiterate it, guys. You have to click the link in the video description below. It has to be a bet that settles. And then after that, you're going to get 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Just an incredible value. So not even just football. Like, you get access to the NBA slates today and going forward, those next 60 days. It's really just a great time to get into it with so much happening in the sports world, even outside of the NFL. How about the gift that pays for itself? And not to mention the fact that currently BetMGM has a promo where it's a risk-free bet. So even if you bet on a huge underdog and lose, you'll get that money back in your account. It's a win-win, a classic win-win-win, if you will. Thank you, Michael Scott. It's a great offer. Get into the action today. All right, the running back position. Again, this is tough. What are you doing just with this position in general today when you have a player like James Conner at the very top and the uncertainty of someone like Aaron Jones right below him in salary? Or actually, Jones is above him in salary, excuse me.
Yeah, this is tough. I mean, you have essentially one running back on the entire slate who has a feature back workload. None of the other offenses use one. And it just so happens that James Conner plays on perhaps the least attractive offense. I think you could debate that between LA and Arizona, but it's a bottom 2 offense on this particular slate. So right away, the question is, how many people actually take the locked in touches that James Conner's actually offering here? And I think it's not enough. That's another thing when you're talking about, like using Tua Tagovailoa stacks, like Tua Tagovailoa and Tyreek Hill. You're not playing James Conner. You just can't afford him. So I think one of these players comes in a little under-owned comparatively, and I would be surprised if it's not James Conner here. I think people are probably not going to click his name, and he just offers so many locked-in touches here. So between the two of them, James Conner, Aaron Jones, I personally think Conner comes in a little lower owned. He'd be the preference for me, just 1 for 1 if you're picking one of the two.
I think we're seeing this the same way, Matt. If you look at expected fantasy points, which is just the value of Conner's opportunity, I get that the opportunity value is a little bit variable with a quarterback like McSorley coming into the mix. His 15.6 expected fantasy points over the last 6 weeks is 1.5 points more than Aaron Jones, way more than Raheem Mostert, significantly more than Leonard Fournette as well. So again, from an opportunity value standpoint, no one even comes close to James Conner at the position today. We've got him number 1 in our projections, despite being number 2 in salary rankings. Just below him, Raheem Mostert at 5,900, Leonard Fournette at 5,800, Latavius Murray, who came into this week questionable, but looks like he's going to play, 5,600. You have any love for these 3 mid-tier running backs? Because especially if you're trying to get to those upper stacks, you're probably going to have to make decisions in this range.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to have to play them no matter what, especially if you're stacking toggle by low. If you're playing Brady, you can make some more interesting builds. But Mostert stands out because he's a running back attached to the team with the highest implied team total. We had a super chat. I see Sam is asking very much for us to answer right now. Wilson in regards to Mostert. Is Mostert still a solid RB play with Wilson in? Personally, I think yes. I think that it's maybe a 75-20 split, 70-30 split. That's reflected in our projections where you have Raheem Mostert projected about 7 to 8 points above Jeff Wilson. Now, Jeff Wilson enters the picture as an interesting GPP pivot off Mostert because Miami's run the hot hand all year. We saw it earlier in the year with Edmonds and with these 2 backs we're talking about now. So I think you could definitely use Jeff Wilson if you're playing Millie Maker style stuff. But among running backs in this range, Raheem Mostert's still my favorite. I like him a little bit more than Fournette and Rachaad White. Those are the players I would rank 2 and 3. It's really hard to differentiate between them. It's essentially the same role. Both have pass game usage. Both have base work usage. You're kind of just betting on who gets touchdowns in that. And my approach was to mix and match them. I'm going to be playing 20 lineups right now. I continue to add more entries, so we'll see what I close out at, but I'm planning on being split between Fournette and Rachaad White in this range.
Mostert still has that home run upside for me. 3 fantasy points over expected per game is really appealing. That level of efficiency just isn't typically available or seen long-term, even over a 6-week stretch for a running back. And we know this about Mostert with his, whatever you want to call it, his big play upside. Just to value the opportunity of these 2 running backs and compare it to other players on the slate. Over the last 6 weeks, Mostert and Wilson have combined for 15.5 expected fantasy points per game, the same opportunity value as James Conner. So just to go back to your earlier point, you need efficiency from these mid-tier players because you're not getting the guaranteed workload like the top tier. After this, I think obviously people are going to be interested in someone like A.J. Dillon, who continues to score at a very high rate. He's pretty low in our projections. In fact, at this bottom part of the running back, we're kind of moving away from them in our rankings. Like Dillon doesn't look good compared to salary-based expectations. Akers looks okay. These Denver running backs don't look really that strong. Anybody else at the bottom tier of this running back position?
I do have interest in A.J. Dillon. We know the touchdown upside is there for a player like him, and that's still a committee. It's moved towards Aaron Jones slightly over the last couple of weeks, but A.J. Dillon's still very much involved. Packers are underdogs here. That never really helps him, but he's essentially 10% owned, a little bit more than that. If this were a main slate, you would see him at like 2 or 3% owned. So I can certainly get behind A.J. Dillon. He's more of a contrarian pivot off the Fournettes, Whites, Latavius Murray's. I prefer all those players to him. But again, Millie Maker style stuff, it's a leverage play. There's a lot of questions about Latavius Murray here. Again, they've been willing to use other backs. We've seen Marlon Mack, we've seen Mike Boone, and now they called up Chase Edmonds. So I very much believe that this is going to be a committee in Denver.
Me too.
And Latavius Murray, I think, is a guy that might be over-projected. I think he's the toughest running back to project today, just because the volatility within the Denver offense from a role standpoint. So our projections like him, but just know there's, I think, a little bit of volatility here with how many carries and touches he actually sees.
It's the old Ben Rasa. You got to get 2 things right. Not only do you have to get the opportunities correct with more players coming into the fold and injury uncertainty in that backfield. If there's anything the Rams do well, it's run defense. They are 5th in Football Outsiders DVOA against the run and 4th in yards allowed per carry. I think it's reasonable to stay away from the Denver backfield today. Of course, in a large field tournament on this small of a slate, anybody who's getting, solid 8 to 10 touch upside, they're in the you can play them range. So I'm not going to say absolutely not, but if you wanted to just just cut these out in terms of the volatility and the uncertainty with the Denver running game. I don't think you have to go there. Anything else on the running back position before we move things over to wide receivers and tight ends?
I don't think so. I think looking at my exposures right now, I have more Aaron Jones than I thought. But that's just me personally, in case you guys were wondering. I have more Rashad White than Fournette too, which is interesting. Probably just a price thing.
That's the one I wanted to ask you about, because Fournette is one of those, he doesn't look interesting in our tools, but he doesn't look bad. Like, he's got a projection right at salary-based expectations. The ownership projections are slightly below that top tier, those top three players. Again, I'm not excited about going to either White or Fournette, but just the nature of the slate is going to make me get there. Don't rule him out, even though White has continued to creep up in usage. I do want to mention, though, that we have an awesome offer. If you don't have BetMGM available to you, I know some of you are kind of clamoring that, wait a minute, I want to get into the game here. How do I get into the action and get a free month? Well, how about No House Advantage, guys? No House Advantage right now, we're offering a $50 first match deposit bonus. We also have bringing in dynamic fantasy sports platform available to you with play and pickup. Oh, it's $100. Thank you, producer Mike. Thank you, man. Yeah. Thank you, behind the glass. Yeah, so we got two ways to play over there. First of all, the pick'em contest versus other people for a shot at winning $150K in cash. You also have this new versus the house mode where you can get 20x your entry fee if you hit all your picks. Multiple sports, NFL, NBA, MMA, NASCAR, and MLB when they're around. And you got to sign up with the link below, but you will get that deposit bonus now up to $100. Fantastic way to get into the action. Oh, we also have tools available for you on Stokastic.com that can help you take down this unique format. It's the same stats you guys know and love, but you're actually ranking the confidence of the projection. It's really cool, and we got the tools to help you over at Stokastic.com. To the wide out position, look, the Miami wide receivers, they're going to be popular, and they're good plays. How are you breaking down this Tyreek versus Waddle situation? Tyreek Hill may be in 60% of lineups today.
Yeah, I think that's a situation that honestly might not be enough considering how condensed the opportunity is between these two players, the lack of alternatives. Once you get beyond Tyreek Hill and Waddle, who I think should probably be your top two quarter or wide receiver ranked players on this slate. I mean, you get to Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, probably DeAndre Hopkins, somewhere in this range. We're kind of splitting hairs there. The difference in projection ultimately between Tyreek Hill and the number 2 receiver on this slate is about 7 points, which is absurd. And I don't think that's enough in terms of price here. So at the very least, I want to play one of these two guys. The more interesting conversation is how do you make it work playing them both? Because that I think is very, very treacherous and something that I want to be careful of unless you're comfortable holding hands with the entire field, which I personally am not, but it's very hard to play them both together. They're really good plays is the only way to say this.
Very fair. And guys, remember, depending on the contest you're playing, it's okay to have many players, not all, but many players just going along with the field. There is such a thing as good chalk, particularly on a small slate like today. So if you want to go all in and have something like 80% Tyreek Hill, that's not an unreasonable thing today, but there's also not really an 80% chance even the best wide receivers actually hit their top end score if you're just playing this slate out over and over again. But it's okay to take stances like that with these high upside players. I do want to look at the opportunity value like we did with the running backs. And over the last 6 weeks, Tyreek Hill, 14.9 expected fantasy points per game, is number 1 among all wide receivers. But it's below James Conner over that same span. And it is actually with Chris Godwin. Not that much more, I should say. Godwin is at 14 expected fantasy points per game. And that's actually more than I expected to see when I looked at the stats. And both of them are between 1 and 2 fantasy points over expected per game. So I actually think Godwin might be the best value, certainly in this tier of the wide receiver position today. I'm not going to go crazy overboard with Brady and Godwin. I've already lost enough money with them this year, but I think Godwin is a solid play today.
Yeah, I love Godwin. It's really hard to argue against him. Even with Brady struggling, Godwin is the type of receiver you love with a quarterback who is declining. He runs 5 yards, turns around, catches it, falls down, and he does that 15 times a game. Very safe receiver, good red zone role. He's going to play in the slot a ton. And that my breakdown's probably selling him a little bit short. He's a very talented player who's kind of handicapped by his quarterback right now. but he's also not expensive. He's cheaper than both Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. This is perhaps the second best team to target on the slate when you look at overall game environment, who's favored in their games. They're touchdown favorites against Arizona. So I know their game environment as a whole is about 8 points behind Miami, Green Bay, but I still think you're probably taking the you're taking the Buccaneers offense over the Packers offense right now. Godwin, I think, is a lock in cash games. He's probably, if you're not playing Tyreek Hill and Waddle together, he's the next receiver you'd look at into your lineup.
Totally agree. You got to play him in cash at that 6.9K range. On FanDuel, he takes up a little bit more of the salary cap, 2% more of the salary cap over there, which makes him a little bit tougher. We still have him projected ahead of salary-based expectations if you're playing over there. You mentioned that you like the Buccaneers offense in general over the Packers, but you already said you were taking shots on Aaron Jones, and I have to assume that you will take shots on Christian Watson, who also has a projection ahead of salary-based expectations and is fourth among wide receivers in expected fantasy points per game. I think Watson deserves to be in the conversation with these top-tier wide receivers. Even at 6K, a full 1.5K less than a player like Hopkins, he has that top-tier upside.
He does. He's tough, though, because the target volume is not great. It's pretty good. But in a vacuum, I would rather have DeAndre Hopkins. And we know how hot Christian Watson's been running with touchdowns. He does get targeted a lot in the end zone. And for players that get targeted in the end zone, you're going to score touchdowns inevitably. But I think there's a bit of negative regression for a player like Alan Lazard. Mm-hmm. So when I come over and I look at our ownership projections, especially on an offense I'm not too enticed by and one I'm not stacking a lot, seeing Watson with essentially the same ownership as Jalen Waddle, one, I don't agree with it. Two, if it is close to this, I think it's inflated, and I would rather play Mike Evans for 200 more. I'd rather go down and play Alan Lazard for 700 less, and hopefully that's a leverage point for me. In a vacuum, I understand why Watson's projected more, and I agree with that. But again, you can't, especially for me playing tournaments, if you're playing cash, this isn't really a conversation. But if you're playing tournaments today, you can't just hold hands with the entire field. So this is a choice I will be making, and it is very much a choice. You could choose to do something else as well.
The man is still averaging a touchdown every 4 targets, Matt.
That's so absurd.
That is not real life.
That's so absurd.
A 26.5% touchdown rate is you're not going to get this reference, Matt, but this is the Breaking Bad. He can't keep getting away with this moment. Like, it's just, look, he's a good player. I'm happy that they're figuring things out, but in expected fantasy points per game, the opportunity value, he's barely inside the top 60 wide receivers at this point in the season. Now, if you look at the last 6 weeks, that's obviously getting better for Watson, but still, the touchdown rate is insane. I get why you're going away from him in tournaments. Talk to me briefly about DeAndre Hopkins, and then if you must, break down Sutton and Jeudy against this Rams mediocre pass defense. I'm just so done with Denver. If you're not, tell the people what you think there. But obviously Hopkins is probably part of that top tier.
Yeah, I like Hopkins from a leverage standpoint. He's not going to project well today, and there's very clear reasons for that. The quarterback change, they have one of the lowest implied team totals on the slate. We're talking 7.5-point underdogs in a game that's only totaled at 41.5 points. So there's just not a lot of touchdown expectation. But there could be a lot of target volume, especially if they're down in this game. So from a leverage standpoint, you're kind of paying up to be contrarian with him, which I don't mind. I've got him in about a quarter of my lineups right now, so nothing crazy. And a lot of that because, I'm just going to be playing quite a few Tom Brady stacks. Naturally, he's going to come along on some run backs there. So yeah. I like Hopkins. The Sutton Jeudy thing, your guess is as good as mine. I think they're probably pretty even, but I think Sutton is the better talent, and he had a pretty commanding lead in terms of target share before the injury. He did get 3 limited practices this week, so it's not really a question of whether he plays. I think it's more effectiveness. I'll take a shot on it at his current price. He's just way too cheap if you're telling me we're even getting like 85% Cortland Sutton, and salary goes a long way on this slate. I know it's 3 games, and generally these are softer, but it's actually a pretty tight 3-game slate. I want to play Waddle. I want to play Hill. One of the ways to do that, I think, is saving some salary by going down to Sutton.
Any Jalen Ramsey concerns? Because I assume it would be Sutton seeing more Ramsey than Jeudy.
Probably, but Ramsey's been beat enough times in his career where I'm not too concerned.
That's
more
fair.
Concerned about Russell Wilson being a pumpkin.
Yeah, like we don't have to double count it. We know the quarterback stats, and we know that the defense, the matchup is built into the projections over at Stokastic.com. That's probably fair. Although I did see some new advanced metrics on quarterbacks come out, and apparently Jalen Ramsey might still be good. That's
yeah, I think he's a good player for sure. I like Jalen Ramsey as a player.
Let's move down to this mid, like 55K and below. We got players like Alan Lazard there. Marquise Brown is 5,400. And then you get really down there because, Cortland Sutton, we mentioned, is 49. You could play a player like, I don't know, Russell Gage. Van Jefferson is 41. Below 5,500, and especially in this 4,500 to 5,500 range, do you have any reads on what you want to do?
Do we want to talk Atwell at this point? Under 5,500? Is this the time?
Yeah, let's go there. So 35 to 55. Yeah, let's talk to.
Because I think to talk about Van Jefferson, we kind of need to bring up Atwell.
Sure.
He's going to be the stone chalk of the slate below 4K. Those of you that are double stacking Tua with Waddle and Tyreek, Atwell's in your lineup. Those of you that are playing James Conner, Atwell's in your lineup. Double stacking Brady, Atwell's in your lineup. Unless you're forcing him out. He's in all your cash games. He's the Rams' 1 or 2 receiver. I say the or in there because we're talking about a very small sample here without Kupp, and now we lost Skowronek. So somebody has to step up. I personally believe Van Jefferson is the more talented player of the two. We know the injury with Van Jefferson earlier this year that kept him from being a starter and kind of allowed Skowronek to work into whatever role he was in, glorified blocking tight end. But Tutu Atwell now has seen a lot of targets and opportunity recently. There's still concerns with him as a player. He wasn't able to crack the active roster through most of last year, despite being a second-round pick. He's about 150 pounds. He has to play in the slot. He has to have a limited role because of that. So for Atwell to just be the stone chalk down here at this price, I get it for cash games. I'm playing him there. Anything small field, under 1,000, even probably like under 10,000, I think he's a decent consideration. For Millie Maker style stuff, I think he's the worst play on the slate. And that's where Van Jefferson comes in. I think Van Jefferson just, as soon as we expand the sample here, again, we're talking about 2 games. Atwell's been the one through 2 games. If we expanded this to a full NFL season, maybe beyond that, is Van Jefferson actually the wide receiver 1 here? I think there's a chance he is. And he's also the more dynamic player. He's the field stretcher in this offense. I know big plays are few and far between with Baker Mayfield at the helm and no offensive line right now. But if one happens, I think it's more likely to be Van Jefferson. So as a leverage play, and again, this is leverage. This is not cash games. It's not small field. I like Van Jefferson a lot.
That's a great breakdown. And like you said, Tutu Atwell, projection well ahead of salary-based expectation. He's the wide receiver 16 on the slate. He almost cracks our top 10 in median projection. Great for cash games. But we're talking about ceiling potential, ways to take down the biggest tournaments today. And look, the most receiving yards Atwell has had in a game this season is 62. Not to say that's his true ceiling, but we have some nice metrics in the fact that he's gone from a 46% route rate up to 64%. Last week was 84%. And he's seen 18 targets over the last 3 weeks. That's nice. That's cash game nice, but it's not slate breaking nice. The one thing you could say in Atwell's favor is that 4.4 speed could theoretically help him if he breaks a tackle, but it's really hard to break a tackle when you're 5'9", 155 in the NFL. Just saying. He's a decent agility player. I like Van Jefferson. And like you said, the ceiling potential is there for him. What about players like Russell Gage or Trent Sherfield, who's had some big scores as well, and is a good way to attach yourself to this Miami team without spending a ton in salary? I think a player like Sherfield, under 10% owned, is someone that I'm very interested in tournaments. But then below him, I feel like I'm truly throwing darts with players like Cobb or Romeo Dobbs or the ghosts of Julio Jones or AJ Green. It just feels like there's a certain line after Sherfield because of the game environment and the team he plays on that I may not have to cross unless I'm playing super large field.
Yeah, I think Sherfield's fine. He's like your direct leverage play off of some of the cheap guys we've been talking about. He's attached to Miami. The problem with him is I don't think he's on the field as much as Gage and even Julio Jones. Miami's a team that uses a ton of weird personnel formations. So you're going to see formations with fullback Alec Ingold. You're going to see formations that have both Mike Gesicki and Durham Smythe on the field. They're just going to do a lot of things. So I think Trent Sherfield is fine if you're playing him as a leverage play, but you just have to know going into it, he has a lot of volatility. And it's not just because the targets are funneled through Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Like, he might not even be on the field for a lot of this game because of their volatility with personnel formations and however they decide they want to attack the Packers defense. With Tampa Bay, you don't have those concerns.
Right. And it's almost like Miami is doing all those weird personnel just to confuse defenses enough to leave Waddle or Hill open. It's not like they're trying to get other people. Like, sure, if Sherfield breaks a tackle from the 25 and takes it to the house, they're thrilled with that. But remember, this scheme is all about getting their playmakers, their speedsters open in space. You know, someone in chat is saying, like, why is Romeo Doubs considered a dart throw? I mean, I guess it's fair to consider him a more, staple of the Packers offense, but he ran less than 40% of the team's routes last week. He caught all 5 of his targets, but 5 for 55 seems like the thing you're asking for when you put Romeo Doubs in your lineup.
I mean, he's the worst receiver that the Packers have that they play. And this isn't just I've been in the lab watching the tape stuff. Last week before, did the Packers play in primetime? I can't remember.
I'm almost positive they did.
I think me and Laffy did a showdown show because why else would I have done this? Anyway, I went into the lab. I took yards per route run, and I believe I limited this to 20 targets. So there are about 113 qualifiers here. If you had at least 20 targets, Randall Cobb, Christian Watson, and Alan Lazard were all in the top 40. Romeo Doubs was outside the top 80. So I don't know why the Packers are playing him. From a talent standpoint, he's clearly not where he needs to be yet to be on the field. That's reflected in his route rates at this point. Like, I don't think he's cracking the field for Watson or Lazard. Maybe he plays over Cobb a little bit just because Cobb is so old and, Cobb's probably shouldn't be out there 100% anyway, but Cobb's better than him, flat out. Yards per route run, not even close. Cobb's about 50 spots higher than him.
That's insane. That's just insane. And it might speak to Rodgers sort of demanding a certain level of connection before you even get the ball, but that's a pretty darn good breakdown to me. Anything else at the wide receiver before we kick this thing over to tight end?
I think you can throw darts on the very cheap Rams guys. So, like, if you're considering Atwell, would you be shocked today if Brandon Powell out-targeted Atwell?
Not at all. Like, Atwell, like 4 targets is in the range of outcomes for sure, maybe even less.
I don't think it's a lock or even close to that by any means, but like, if you turned over the cards and saw the opportunity for later today, I wouldn't be surprised if Powell out-targets him. So I think, if you end up in the Trent Sherfield range or something, I wouldn't be opposed to throwing darts on the really cheap Rams.
That's, gosh, please, Baker Mayfield, do something. At least the Nickelodeon game, will make it interesting, even if there's no points.
That game's on Nickelodeon? Is it really?
Be slime and stuff. Yeah, it's going to be actually a little shout out.
That's perfect. I'm so happy that's on Nickelodeon.
Guys, we're also at 25 likes until 500. Come on. As Laffy would say, atone for your sins, but not today. Not today. We're not in a sinful mood. We're in a joyful mood. Today is a joyful day. We're ringing bells and we're hitting the like button, Matt. I mean, it's really this simple, guys. We're going to get to 500. We're all going to feel good about ourselves. We're going to hug a family member, and then we're going to, drink our merry way through a wonderful football slate. So, do us that little favor. Get us to 500. We'll appreciate it. And now we'll talk about tight ends. Look, when Greg Dulcich is the number 1 tight end on the slate, it's a bad tight end slate. What are you thinking about? Let's just group all of these top 6 players in, because the highest projected player at this position is 3,900. The most you can pay is 4,100. Who are you getting at tight end today?
Guess who's my most owned? This
Trey
is
McBride.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it is.
Just stone minimum.
Yeah, the reason is, I mean, it's the same thing as like the Brandon Powell versus Tutu Atwell. What are the chances you flipped over the cards today and you saw Trey McBride led the position in targets? It'd be surprising, but it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility here. And for like Dulcich to be commanding 35% ownership, Higbee in over a quarter of lineups, that's surprising to me. Ultimately, my exposure is spread out between most of these tight ends because you don't really have a slate breaker on the entire slate. But McBride, from a leverage standpoint, I think is one of the most, it's like a highly leveraged thing you can do while still playing Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Right. So I've been trying to talk that through for a lot of this slate. How do I play the studs and not hold hands with the field? this is one way to do it. So that's how I got to McBride, if you guys are curious. He's not good, but he's maybe the same caliber player as Dulcich and Higbee and everyone else on the slate.
And I'm assuming too, like you're using him as a low salary run back. Maybe you have Hopkins in that lineup. Maybe you have Brady or one of the Tampa Bay players as well. It just makes sense when you're attaching yourself to what is supposed to be the second best game environment on the slate. So I get it in terms of saving salary. MB 4.5 expected fantasy points per game that McBride has been getting over the last 6 weeks. It's no better, no worse than Robert Tonyan. Just a little bit worse than Tyler Higbee, who has disappeared at times late in this season. Dulcich is the one where, you know, that feels like saying Trey McBride is going to out-target Dulcich feels like the biggest stretch, but I'm still talking about a rookie tight end playing with the ghost of Russell Wilson. Like, what do we really expect here? And the top opportunity value in Greg Dulcich's usage, 6.3 expected fantasy points per game, almost a third of the opportunity value of James Conner. So just put that in perspective as you're building lineups. You have any love for like Cade Otton, Robert Tonyan, Cameron Brate at the very bottom here? I don't know. This is ugly.
It is ugly. I'm fine with all of them, honestly. The only one I don't really want to get to is Brate. I think you could literally see like 20% of the snaps for Brate, which clearly would not be ideal. So ultimately, Otton between the two, I think, is far more attractive. He's also like the shiny new rookie. He's actually a two-way tight end as well. Brate, he kind of is forced to play in the slot because he's not big enough to actually handle blocking duties. So I have quite a bit of Otton. Just for reference, Brady's my most owned quarterback. So you can tell why I'm getting to McBride and Cade Otton more than anyone else. And that's kind of nice because the field's going to a lot of Dulcich, which I don't necessarily love.
It's like gravitating around the only okay play, not necessarily what you need to do in tournaments. And there was a time when Cameron Brate was getting at least one red zone look per game. In 4 straight games that he played in the middle of this season, he got a red zone look. He hasn't had a single red zone target since week 10. And at that low level of value, you're going to need a touchdown. So it's just really hard to bank on. Anything else at the tight end position? Woof, what a mess today here.
I don't think so. I think we got it.
All right. Then we got to talk about this lineup generator, guys, because if you haven't checked out the new additions to the lineup generator tool, it's like a Christmas present for all of our Stokastic members, you know, just because you don't have to take advantage of one of these fancy schmancy promos because you already got into the club. The lineup generator continues to innovate in huge ways. Player swap is now available within the tool. Users now have the ability to swap out a player, choose another player, sorting by salary. One of the most asked about features in the lineup generator is now live, which, by the way, guys, if you haven't checked it out, you've got the ability to choose the type of builds you're doing, balanced builds, highly projected or contrarian builds. You can save or discard lineups as you go. You can see your player exposures so you know who you're banking on. One of the best ways I like to use it is to just build a bunch and then use sort of my backwards narrative building to say, like, does this lineup make logical sense? Then I'll throw it into the pool. Then I'll check my exposure. Really cool stuff. And now the ability to stack in NFL contests as well with runbacks. Chef's kiss from the data and tools team over at stokastic.com. No better time to get into the action. Look at that. Look at that fancy stuff on the screen. And this is just the beginning, guys. More coming soon. All right, let's do this. Before we hit defenses, because I know we're playing the correlation game real fast. 100 yards and a touchdown on this crazy 3-game slate.
Oh, man.
You can do chalk. You can do whoever.
Okay. Aaron Jones.
Okay. And I'm going to say Jalen Waddle gets in the zone.
Love it.
And Tyreek Hill underperforms. But if you want to go with him, I'm not going to say no. There you go. We're not getting huge off the board. That's all right. If you got a good one for us, throw it up in chat. Oh, we also got a super chat from JC13. Merry Christmas, man. Raw points, Watson or AJ Dillon and DK?
Watson.
Same here. Oh, God, A.J. Dillon's going to score twice now with like 4 carries. Watch it.
That's good. I bet the Packers. So this is not a betting show, but.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, so the defensive position. Buccaneers at number 1 in our projections, number 2 in salary ranking. Let's just break down the whole position. What's your highest owned defense? What are the upside plays? Anyone you're staying completely away from? We got 4 minutes till this lock.
My highest owned defense is the Rams. I imagine that's just because the Buccaneers look like they're higher owned.
Yeah. Okay.
What's your
that's
highest
fair.
owned?
I
get to face Russ Wilson. So
I have the Packers, and I don't feel good about it. Just to get down there, I still feel like this game goes under, and there are mistakes made. Maybe I'm just a fool. As you said, Buccaneers look fantastic in the tools, and truly, guys, with the defense position, because it is so highly variable, I just play the correlation game. I'm making sure it's going with a running back or some other way that I'm skinny stacking within my lineup. And unfortunately, sometimes I truly don't care about the median projection for any of these. I'm trying to see I even have some of the Rams and Broncos defenses because I believe that game could just be so ugly. There's so many mistakes made that if you get defensive scores, they're going to be necessary on this slate.
Yeah, Rams are my highest owned defense. There
you go. So it's more of a game theory than an actual technical analysis thing with defense.
And what makes your lineup work? Like if you need an extra $600, I have no issue paying down from like Tampa Bay, LA, and going to Green Bay, Arizona. No issue with that at all.
Perfect. All right. Now we got 2 minutes to lock. We blew past 500 likes. A wonderful Christmas gift from all of our Stokastic fans over on YouTube. That's what we needed. We just needed 500 likes, and we got there flying colors. We're now at 2 minutes to lock on this Christmas Day slate. Any final words for the people, Matt, before we get out of here?
Yeah, thank you guys for allowing Matt and I to do this. It's a pleasure coming to you live on Christmas. One of my favorite sports betting days and DFS days of the entire year. So appreciate you guys. Thank you for all the likes, and I hope you guys have a great holiday.
I appreciate you, Stokastic family. And I want to shout out my family who scrambled out of this main room so that I could do the show right here, where clearly the only place the internet works well enough to do it. I appreciate them. Glad to be with them. And I appreciate all of you. Let's go win some money today. Follow Matt. Oh, man, he's doing so much over at Stokastic. NCAA basketball, football season, college football season is wrapping up, but he's still doing great work over there. And of course, in the NFL streets, follow him at Matt_Gajewski, and maybe Matt Rapjeski can become a thing. Follow Mike at Awesome Yo. Thank you so much to your work behind the glass, getting us ready with this crazy technical problems we had going in. And Merry Christmas to you guys. You can follow me at Draftaholic as well. My name is Matt Savoca. For all of us at Stokastic, we wish you guys the very best Christmas to you and yours. Stay safe, have fun. Let's win some money.